And the final express and connect middleware component we're going to talk about is to implement HTTP basic authentication. It's not something we're going to use very often in our web applications itself because it tends to be ugly and not particularly well integrated with the rest of our system. But it is actually a pretty reasonable way we can use to secure our JSON API servers as long as they're working over HTTPS. So let's go here and take a look at everything. The middleware component we want to use HTTP authentication is actually just called basic auth. So we say basic auth, and then we give it a username and a password. And that's all we need to do. Now when I say app.get star, I can do function rec res like that. I can do res.end secret like that. Now again, this is probably not something I'm going to use in the browser very much because it'll look localhost 8080. It puts up this hideously ugly dialog, and it's not very well integrated with sort of a login system or something that I like. So, and then you'll see if you don't enter it, you get unauthorized. I'm much more likely to use this from the command line as sort of or in my clients if I have an iPhone client or something to do authentication there. So there, what I can do is get, and I can pass in the basic authentication information using curl by saying the U. So it's mark1 and secret. Nope, I actually wanted username and secret. -u username secret. And now when I call it, you'll see I get the secret message that way. So that's pretty cool. This actually is very simple authentication, and there's a lot of debate raging on whether basic authentication is good enough or not. I and some other projects we've worked on, I've felt actually pretty comfortable using it for JSON API servers. Again, as long as they're transmitted over HTTPS, it seems like a pretty reasonable solution with pretty good security. I would like to talk about another problem or a sort of scenario we'd like to solve for, and that is, let's say I have get/users function rec res. I have get/ maybe albums, get/ albums, album name, photos, and then I also have another there. I have admin pages. Now I only want, let's try to do that correctly. Now let's say that I only want to authenticate for admin, and the rest of the pages I don't actually care if you're authenticated or not. So this top level app.use means it will be used for every single incoming request, and right now I'm going to demand that you are authenticated for all of these as well as admin, and that's definitely not what I want. Now you recall way earlier on when I talked about the format of this, I said app.method regex, and then I said optional functions, and then finally the handler. Now the optional functions, I can actually inject middleware components right here into my sort of routing functions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop using the basic auth component as a top level middleware component, and what I'm going to do here instead is I'm going to add it as a middleware component here on this route. Now you may be wondering how I'm putting a function call here. This is actually a function call that returns another function which can then be, which works as a middleware component. So I'm going to say here res.end users, albums, photos, and then this is secret admin page, which you have to have username and secret for. So again, these guys, since there's no other middleware components, I can just go ahead and call them directly. But this guy, once I see that admin matches, I'm going to call this middleware function first. And if it gets username and secret, it will then call next to actually call my handler function. If it doesn't like what it sees, it's going to print unauthorized and stop all processing right away. So let's run that guy. And I'm going to come here, and I'm going to say curl. I don't actually need the username right now, so I'm going to say localhost 8080/users. This one, like the first one. And that works great. I can do albums, and that works great. And now if I want admin, that gives me an unauthorized like you see here. So now what I can do is I can do -u username secret and then localhost 8080/admin. And now you'll see I actually get the admin secret page message. So I can use sort of middleware functionality in these optional other functions here to only require that certain parts of my application server or whatever have authentication, but that the other parts then can be wide open and free for anybody to use. And so again, we'll see this functionality again in Chapter 9 when we actually implement some database-based user authentication, but I just wanted to show you the basic functionality of the middleware component for now. And with that, I think we're finally done with Lesson 7, and for the next couple of lessons, we're going to move on and look at some NoSQL and then relational database, sort of traditional SQL database functionality in our Node.js applications. See you then.